What's up, crew? Welcome back to Libertalia Game Supply. We are taking a look at PK Fire, a classic today. Just a little something to get me back on pace. The holidays were busy, didn't get as many uploads together, and so I just want to get something to get me back on track. And so I thought I'd take a look at an old favorite of mine. Now, I really enjoyed Burning Abyss back in the day when it was not Phantom Knight. Those didn't even exist yet. Just 3 Graph, 3 Seer, 3 Scarm, 3 Dante, and then you just go nuts from there. And the way the deck evolved is pretty cool. I played it up until around the point when that level 1 Jack Atlas thing that is support for trap cards. I don't know why I can't remember the name of it now. I played up until about that came out. So you're playing like the Karma Cuts, Raigeki Breaks, that kind of stuff. So way back in the day, and so I wanted to see what a more modern version of it would look like, especially since it's gotten a few waves of support in the form of Phantom Knight stuff. And so here we are. We'll breeze through the list here pretty quick, and then I'll show you a couple starter combos. I probably will play around with this every once in a while, and maybe some new interesting stuff will come up. So of the original 3, we're going 3 Graph, 2 Seer, 2 Scarm. Scarm is a lot less important now that the game is so fast. It's pretty much always searching that tour guide as your follow-up for the next play. The Seer is just in there to loop the Dantes. I don't think 3 is nearly as important, especially turn 1. When you don't really have a graveyard set up, it can be kind of a brick in your hand. And then Graph is just always good. A special summon from the deck is always going to be good, and so that's why we maxed out there. The double Farfa, because it gives you that pretty solid interruption on your opponent's turn. So the Farfa, especially with Beatrice being in there and being a pretty easy summon, makes sense to me at 2, just because you can get those 2 quick play interruptions on your opponent's turn. The 1 Libic is just kind of an extender if you happen to have something in your hand that you need the effect of on the field and you don't want to burn its special summon effect from the hand but still get its other effect. You just use the Libic to get it out there off of like a Cherubini or something. The Alich is in archetype, searchable, effect negation, always good. The Cowcab can remove some back row before you start trying to go in for your plays. And then the Barber is just good for in time. It burns for 900 at a time if you need it to. If you have the graveyard filled up, it can win you games in time. It can kind of close out a game like Cowboy could. So just good to keep in there. The ones that are not in here are the ones that I deem to suck. Kagna sends a Burning Abyss Speller Trap to the graveyard. You can't really do as much with that. Dragig, I always forget what it does. I think it puts a Burning Abyss from your deck on top of your deck, which is terrible. I don't know why they made that in the first place. Rubik isn't horrible. It just doesn't have an effect on its own apart from the special summon, and we're not playing the Virgil, as you can see. And I'm fairly certain that's all of them, but if I'm missing one, it's probably because its effect is also terrible. We've got double Fiendish Rhino Warrior. It acts similarly to Cherubini. If it's on the field, you're allowed to have your BAs on the field while other monsters outside of BA are on the field, and so it's nice in that sense. Also, if it gets sent to the graveyard, it can Foolish Burial another Fiend, which is all your BAs, so it just triggers those effects. I can see this dropping down to 1. It's not super searchable. You can dump it on your own off of the Cherubini really easily, but I kind of like seeing it in the hand just as a little backup something or other. Triple Tour Guide, the heart and soul of a Burning Abyss deck, and it always has been, and I think it always will be. And then for the Phantom Knight lineup, we've got double Torn Scales. I like this a lot less in a Burning Abyss deck right now, just because your normal summon is more often than not going to be the tour guide, and I haven't seen a way to special summon this super reliably, and so it's just, I don't feel like it's as good. It's just like your plan B normal summon, but even still as a plan B normal summon, it's very good at that, and so we're playing it at 2. I've got the 1 Stained Greaves. It's the only other one outside of the Boots that I've found that can special summon itself really easily. And so I'll show you in a little combo here at the end of the video what I'm using this for, but I like it a lot. At 1, it's fine. I probably wouldn't play it at more than 1, but I do like it for this particular use, and I don't think it's really a brick just because it can get its effect off to summon itself fairly easily, even if you don't use it within this 1 combo. I've got the double copies of Cloak because you banish it to search any Phantom Knight's card. This is pretty much always going to be used to search a Boots or a Greaves. And then the triple Boots, it special summons itself if there is a Phantom Knight on the field, so this is really great with pretty much any Phantom Knight, including the Rusty. Also, when it's in the graveyard, you can banish it to search a Phantom Knight spell or trap. We're only playing traps in this build. I didn't like the rank up version of this so much. We can talk about that later. That banish can also help trigger the special summon of Torn Scales, which is nice, and its special summon can trigger the special summon of Greaves, which is very nice. We got a few hand traps in here, double Veiler, double Nibiru, triple Ash. These can kind of be whatever you want as long as it's not imperm. We're trying to limit any traps in the graveyard just so that this can resolve as easily as possible, because these can banish themselves, so they can just very easily not be in the graveyard. 1 card destruction, you could take it or leave it. I just feel like in a deck that can play it, I want to play it just because it's a nostalgic card, but I don't think it's super necessary. You can't really play a whole lot of other draw power. I think something like Desires would fuck with your ratios a little too much in this deck. It's a very grindy deck, not really combo heavy, but more so resource heavy. Like, it's a hell of a resource engine. And so you kind of want to keep everything available to you. Extravagant Prosperity would dig into this extra deck lineup pretty heavy, and you use a lot of it pretty often. And so I just don't know that there's a better draw card you could play in here, so might as well play the card Destruction. Called by just because hand traps. Foolish, I think, is not needed to be explained. The One Shade Brigandine, it's a free body on board. You can link summon with it. And then the Triple Fog Blade, just an in-archetype searchable Fiendish Chain, essentially. This thing's nuts. You can get multiple on the board usually. So pretty nice in being able to lock down an opponent's board early on. And then with the extra deck here, you've probably already noticed we only have 14 cards. I cannot decide if I want the 15th card to either be a Typhon, just because I think it fits well in just about any rogue deck or any deck in general. It's just such a good card. Or some type of a Link 4. It's pretty easy to make like a Appaloosa or something, rather than just like leaving like a loose end. Though I don't know that you necessarily need it. It probably could fit in there nice, but kind of up to you. I just included the stuff that I think will be reasonably useful fairly often in here, and then if you want to make a change to that or add that 1 extra card in there, go for it. We got the Zeus and the Downerd, so essentially you would be able to Dante, mill, and then attack, main phase 2, make the Downerd, and then the Zeus, and then if you detach, the Dante will get its effect to add 1 back. Hopefully you're able to loop the Seer and the Dante pretty quickly there and just keep that little engine going. Speaking of Dante, we got the 2 Dantes and the 1 Beatrice. It's pretty easy to just throw the Beatrice on board and then have that interruption on your opponent's turn quick effect. Send like a Farfa or an Alich to get a banish or a effect negation or a back row bounce at the end phase or anything like that. So that's why that is all in there. And then if it were to die, you get the Fabulous Dante, just because you can, so that's why I'm playing that. And then for the Phantom Knight stuff, we're playing Double Breaksword. It's just a good removal card. Also, there are multiple ways to trigger its effect to get that special summon out of the graveyard. So if you summon it off of the Boots and the Greaves, for instance, like I'm going to show in the end of the video, and then pop itself in something else, or pop it with Rusty, you would be able to make the Raider's Knight, and then Raider's Knight would be able to make the Arc Rebellion, which can become a big bad boy and negate all the effects on the field. So now right here is probably a good time to talk about the rank up engine. So instead of doing this, you could play the Dark Rebellion and the Dark Requiem with a rank up spell. I didn't like it just because the rank up spell kind of sucks outside of just that 1 play, and you don't always open the 1 play. You need a kind of a particular set of cards for you to have it, or you're going to be playing it later into the grind game. And so I felt like that was a little bit too much of a brick. And while this effect is probably better just because it's a quick effect, negate, and pop, this can be made on turn 1 or turn 2. Turn 2 is probably better. Turn 1, you're probably going to set up your Dante and Seer loop, get your resource engines going, get a little back row maybe, whatever the case may be. And then you could go into this and shut down a board. It's pretty easy to make this guy huge, 5,000, 7,000, 10,000 attack. And so that's what I went with. And then for the links, you got your trusty IPSP, just staple. You kind of got to play it, unfortunately. Cherubini, super sick legacy support. Konami should do this more often for these decks. And part of the reason I wanted to play this is because I pulled this super sick quarter century rare out of a rarity collection pack recently, and I just had to find a way to make use of it, But on the board, it'll protect your BAs from killing themselves if an uninvited guest joins the party. It also gives you that Foolish Burial effect, so it'll let you set up your Seer Dante loop. It can let you get to pretty much whatever BA effect you're looking for, depending on the game state at the moment. And then it does have that attack boost, which is somewhat useful. I guess it can be used to make like a 4K Dante if you needed it to. It makes itself 2100 if you send a Seer, but I think that's far less relevant than everything else it does. And then the 1 Rusty, this thing is a workhorse. It's pretty important in the combo I'm going to show you. It's just good in getting your back rush set up with your Fog Blades, being able to set up your graveyard a little bit for your Phantom Knights. Just excellent card all around. So for this first little combo here, and I don't know that the deck is really a combo deck like I had mentioned earlier, but we're going to open with a tour guide and we're just going to use it to set up our Seer Dante loop. So we'll normal summon that tour guide, get the effect. The tour guide is going to special summon a level 3 Fiend, and we'll grab Graf. Graf's effects are negated, so he will stay with us for the moment. We're then going to link summon our Cherubini using our 2 monsters, and Graf will get its effect. Now what you summon here kind of doesn't matter as much because you're going to send the Seer anyway to get the extra special summon. But I think that your best bet is just to go Skarm, because you're going to search a follow-up for your next turn. You're just trying to set up a resource engine anyway, and the Skarm will get you that another tour guide. The Seer only really has the Graph as a target at this point unless you opened a bunch of other BAs, and so we might as well go with the safe play. So we'll use that Cherubini to send a Seer. Cherubini's effect will gain something, 1600 attack, and so we might as well just gain itself. Seer's effect will activate in the graveyard. It doesn't really matter which one you target. It doesn't make a difference at all. It'll summon the Graph. We can't get the Graph effect again, so we'll leave it attached to a Dante. So we'll make Dante, overlay, detach the Scarm, so the Scarm gets us that search in the end phase. We'll mill 3. It's unshuffled, so we get no effects because they're all just duplicates of what we've already used. So now you have a Dante on board with a Graph and its own effect loaded up. During the end phase, you're going to get that Scarm effect to search, so we'll grab a Tour Guide. So Tour Guide to hand. And now what you have here, essentially, you've passed the turn. Cherubini does nothing now unless it happens to survive, which it likely will not. If the Dante goes down, you get the Graph effect to summon from the deck, so it can be an interrupt card of whatever sort you want. Farfa, Alich, Calcab, whichever one you like. The Dante will then put the Seer back in the hand, so now on your follow-up, you would have the Tour Guide to make another whatever, Dante, Breaksword, whatever. You would have the Seer that you could either play around keeping on the board to make something with, or summon it to a board with something other than a BA to kill it, and then put the Dante back on board, and you just keep that little resource engine flowing right there. For the second one here, we're going to go Tour Guide plus either Boots or Greaves is going to be the play here. You need one or the other for this to work, but essentially you're going to set up a Rusty, an Arc Rebellion, and some back row. So we'll open up the same way. Tour Guide is going to normal summon. We're going to activate that effect. We'll go Graph again, just the best one, I think. We're going to special summon the Cherubini again, and right here it'll start to differ a little bit. So now the Graph is going to get that effect to summon. We can summon the Scarm. We'll get our follow-up play. It's all good. You can choose to do or not do the Cherubini effect because we're just going to link into the Rusty Bardish. So if you Cherubini for a Seer and put something on board, you either link with all 3 or you link with the Cherubini and one of the BAs, and the other one just dies anyway due to its own effect. You don't have to do that effect. You can just do the combo without that at all. But I figure you might as well. It's only 2 cards to do this. You're going to have the other 3 cards that are whatever they happen to be in your hand. Maybe you made a Dante earlier, so you might as well get that rotation going. So we'll do the same play that we did, although it does not matter necessarily. So Seer effect, when it gets dumped off the Cherubini, we'll get our Graph back, and we'll just go ahead and link with all of them because it doesn't make a difference. They're all going to the same place anyway. And we'll get our Rusty on board. Now our Rusty we're going to send the Cloak because we need that search, and we're going to grab the Fogblade number 1 here. Cloak is going to activate, and we're going to search the Greaves from our deck, and now you're set to make that Arc Rebellion. Because we have the Rusty on board, we can special summon the Boots. Because we special summon the Boots, we can special summon the Greaves, and then it'll ask us to make the level of 4. That would be useless to us in this instance. And now right here, this is where it becomes a much better going second play, absolutely. So on this summon, you get the effect of Rusty because a Dark Monster is summoned to its zone. It can pop a card on the field. You are going to end up popping your own Breaksword here because I didn't give us an opponent, but obviously if you're going second and they have something, you can start taking the board apart a little bit. So you would be able to use this pop on, whatever's over here. You would also then be able to use this pop on whatever's over here and still get the Breaksword effect off. Because we don't have any of that, we're just going to use the Rusty to pop the Breaksword just to demonstrate the effects. But keep in mind, that's 2 little removal pieces that we're wasting just because it's a simulation, whatever. So Breaksword in the graveyard will get its effect. It's going to summon the 2 that we just used to make it back to the field, and it's going to make them level 4s. 1 and 2. We're then going to use our 2 level 4s to make the Raider's Knight, and then the Raider's Knight will activate to make the Arc Rebellion. We're going to detach Boots specifically because we want to use the Boots effect in order to get another Fogblade in the back row. So we'll banish that, grab another Fogblade, and then we'll set another Fogblade here. So now what you've ended with is the Rusty, which now does nothing. The Arc Rebellion, which can, just on this, make itself 5100, negate the whole board. Another reason why this is great going second is you can remove some whatever issue pieces, probably back row, because you can summon this, and if they had like a full board, as long as they don't have effect negations or whatever, this guy's easily 10k right off the bat there. And then you have these 2 Fiendish Chains in the back row to lock down whatever else once you pass the turn. So I thought this was a cool little board setup off of 2 cards. But that'll do it. Hopefully you guys had a great 2023. We're heading into 2024. I'll have a new video. I think I'm going to upload one at midnight just to get the year started off right. I'm thinking maybe a Boojin deck profile, a little Boojin update. I feel like you guys have been missing out on that. You might need that. So we'll get that loaded up for the first of next year. Happy deck building. I will see you guys in the next one. Have a good one. Goodbye.